Yeah, so most pressing challenges and pressures and tasks for local government in Europe. Of course, if I'm telling challenges and pressures, I have a specific German perspective because I'm most experienced with the German local government, so I try to have this perspective too. So there are several pressures. One, I think, of the most recent pressures which many European local governments have faced is the migration issue. So what we call in Germany the refugee crisis, because not only the federal level and in Germany the state level, regional level, but specifically the municipalities are faced by these challenges and pressures because the refugees, the migrants, they are arriving at the local level in the municipalities, in the cities, and there's also a very huge concentration of migrants in bigger cities and conurbations. So they are facing these problems specifically. In Germany, most recent data says that there are more than 1 million migrants who have been accepted and who will stay for longer periods or stay permanently in Germany, which means for municipalities, this is the task of integrating them, of integration policies. Integration policies means various policy areas, various tasks, local level tasks to be bundled and to be coordinated at the local level, starting with healthcare, housing policies, education, integration into the labor market, language, culture, participation, and so on and so on. All these different issues have to be bundled and coordinated by municipalities and at the local level. So what our research is focusing on is how to improve coordination between these various policy fields and integration-related tasks at the local level, and how to improve organization and service delivery in this field of local public policy making. So I think this is one of the pressing challenges, and in Germany maybe the most debated and most discussed issue, which also moves, of course, or touches citizens, politicians all over the country. Another important issue, which is quite differently discussed in various European countries, is fiscal pressures. So it's the debate on the fiscal deficit, fiscal problems at the local level. In Germany, there used to be a fiscal crisis at the local level with the municipalities, some of them being highly indebted and in need of finding measures to cut back their resources and to cope with less resources. This has improved in the meantime, so municipalities are now better off in fiscal terms. But as we know from the public debate and from our collaboration with specifically Southern European colleagues, but also with the UK, fiscal crisis and austerity policies is for some countries, for some European countries, one of the most problematic issues and challenges. So in the UK, for instance, they are talking about austerity localism, which means localities have formally more powers, but in fact less resources, less leeway, less capacities. So they have to cope with austerity, which is one of the most pressing issues in Southern Europe too. And this trend of more austerity, more cutback pressures, more fiscal pressures tends to increase a trend of re-centralization. So in some European countries, we observe, instead of strengthening local governments and giving them more powers, we observe a re-centralization, which means central governments taking back some of the functions and resources from the municipalities. This is the case in Greece, in Italy, but also in Eastern European countries like Hungary, for instance. So there's danger that quite strong local government systems are becoming more and more hollowed out and re-centralized because of fiscal problems and re-centralization tendencies. So I think this is a second important issue. So what I mentioned also in the discussion with the colleagues, and what we are also much discussing in Germany, is digital governments, digitalization. So introducing new digital tools and forms of e-services into municipalities in the local level. I think local governments are the most dynamic level and the most dynamic institutions in terms of digital government. More reforming and more innovative than the central state level and or the regional level. So therefore, I think municipalities are really laboratories of innovation in this extent. But on the other hand, of course, there are positive expectations to improve service delivery, to have better access for service delivery for the citizens, to improve services for citizens through digital tools. But on the other hand, we have discussed with the colleagues, we need to take into account possible unintended consequences and negative impacts. So there's the discussion about digital divide of some parts of the population able to communicate digitally and with electronic devices. Others are not. Older populations. And so in order to guarantee equal access, we have to keep in mind this possible digital divide in the society. And also for the employees, the e-government and e-services and public administration are not always a relief of workload. They can be even more demanding and more workload can mean more workload. So we have to take this into consideration also in our research on local government reforms. So I mean, so I think these are three challenges, three important issues. We could also look at the impact of the European Union on the local level. This is another challenge because most of the European legislation has to be implemented at the local level, so over-regulation and overburdening through European rules and laws is mostly a local issue. This is also something local governments have to cope with. So you have this number of challenges, territorial issues. We were talking about territorial pressures, reforms because of demographic changes, depopulated areas. And so the question is, do we have to create larger units to have some economies of scale, efficiency gains? So this debate on the territorial modernization is another crucial issue in many countries. And I know in Sweden as well that you're talking about having larger units, but it's also, of course, resistance from the municipalities saying that we really don't want to have increased sizes and amalgamations. So we have to find solutions for these problems. So there are many challenges for local governments, and our task as researchers is to observe them, but also to provide solutions, feasible solutions for practitioners.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you too.
Very good.